Hi guys, so it's like 11 p.m. inspiration or something. I just got my book out and we are reading chapter 13. So here we go. Here we go. It was 4 o'clock by the time Holly eventually got out of town and started heading home to Swords. Evil Sharon had convinced Holly to go shopping after all, which resulted in her splashing out on a ridiculous top she was far too old to wear. She really needed to watch her spending from now on. Her funds were running low, and without regular income, she could sense 10 times ahead. She needed to start thinking about getting a job, but she was finding it hard enough to get out of bed in the morning as it was. Another depressing 9 to 5 job wasn't going to help matters, but it would pay the bills. Holly sighed loudly. All these things she had to handle by herself. She spent too much time on her own thinking about them. She needed people around her, like today with Denise and Sharon, as they always took her mind of things. She phoned her mum and checked if it was all right for her to call around. Of course you can, love. You're always welcome. Then Elizabeth lowered her voice to a whisper, just as long as you know that Richard is here. Christ. What was with all the little visits of all of a sudden? Holly contemplated heading straight home when she heard that, but convinced herself she was being silly. He was her brother, and as annoying as he was, she couldn't go on avoiding him forever. She arrived to an extremely loud and crowded house, and it felt like old times again, hearing screams and shouts in every room. Her mum was setting an extra space at the table just as Holly walked in. Oh, Mum, you should have told me you were having dinner, Holly said, giving her a hug and a kiss. Why, have you eaten already? No, actually, I'm starving, but I hope you didn't go to too much trouble. No trouble at all, dear. It just means that poor Declan will have to go without food for the day. That's all, she said, teasing her son, who was taking a seat. He made a face at her. The atmosphere was so much more relaxed this time around, or maybe it had just been Holly who was uptight last time they met. So, Mr. Hardworker, why aren't you in college today? She said sarcastically. I have been in college all morning, Declan replied, making a face, and I was going back in at 8 o'clock actually. That's very late, said his father, pouring gravy all over his plate. Frank always ended up with more gravy than food. Yeah, but it was the only time I could get the editing suit. Is there only one editing suit, Declan? Piped up Richard. Yeah, ever the conversationalist. And how many students are there? It's only a small class, so there are 12 of us. Don't they have the funds for any more? For what, students? Declan teased. No, for another editing suit. No, it's only a small college, Richard. I suppose the bigger universities would be better equipped for things like that. They are better all round. And there was the dig they were all waiting for. No, I wouldn't say that. The facilities are top of the range. There's just fewer people, so less equipment. And the lecturers aren't inferior to university lecturers. They are a bonus because they work in the industry as well as lecturing. In other words, they practice what they preach. It's not just textbook stuff. Good for you, Declan, Holly thought, and winked across the table at him. I wouldn't imagine they get paid well doing that, so they probably have no choice but to lecture too. Richard, working in film is a very good job. You're talking about people who have spent years in college studying for degrees and masters. Oh, you get a degree for that, do you? Richard was amazed. I thought it was just a little course you were doing. Declan stopped eating and looked at Holly in shock. Funny how Richard's ignorance still amazed everyone. Who do you think makes all those gardening programs you watch, Richard? Holly interfered. They are not just a crowd of people who are doing a little course. The thought that there was a skill involved had never even crossed his mind. Great little programs they are, he agreed. What's your project on, Declan? Frank asked. Declan finished chewing his food before he spoke. Oh, it's too messy to go into, but basically it's on club life in Dublin. Ooh, well, will we be in it? Kiara broke her unusual silence. Yeah, I might just show the back of your head or something, he joked. Well, I can't wait to see it, Holly said encouragingly. Thanks, Declan put his knife and fork down and started laughing. Hey, what's this I hear about you singing in a karaoke competition next week? What? Kiara yelled, her eyes nearly popping out of her head. Holly pretended not to know what he was talking about. Ah, come on, Holly, he persisted. Danny told me. He turned to the rest of the table and explained, Danny is the owner of the place where I did the gig the other night, and he told me Holly has entered the karaoke competition in the club upstairs. Everyone oohed and ahed and talked about how great it was. Holly refused to give in. Declan, Daniel's just playing games with you. Sure, everyone knows I can't sing. Now, come on, she addressed the rest of the table. Honestly, if I was singing in a karaoke competition, I think I would tell you all. She laughed as if the thought of it was so ridiculous. In fact, the thought was so ridiculous. Holy, Declan chuckled. I saw your name on the list, don't lie. Holy put her knife and fork down. She suddenly wasn't hungry anymore. Holy, why didn't you tell us you're going to sing in a competition? Her mother asked. Because I can't sing. Then why are you doing it? Kiara burst out laughing. She may as well tell them otherwise. Declan would beat it out of her and she didn't like lying to her parents. Okay, it's really a complicated story. But basically, Jerry entered my name in months ago because he really wanted me to do it, and as much as I don't want to do it, I feel I have to go through with it. It's stupid, I know. Kiara stopped laughing abruptly. Holly felt paranoid by her family staring at her, and she nervously tucked her hair behind her ear. Well, I think that's a wonderful idea, her dad suddenly announced. Yes, her mom added. And we'll all be there to support you. No, Mom, you really don't have to. It's no big deal. There's no way my sister is singing in a competition without me being there, declared Kiara. Here, said Richard. We'll all go. So, I have never been to karaoke before. It should be. He searched his brain for the right word. Fun. Polly groaned and closed her eyes, wishing she had gone straight home from town. Declan was laughing hysterically. Yes, Holly, it'll be, he said, scratching his chin. Fun. When is it on? Richard said, talking about his diary, taking out his diary. Hey, it's Saturday, Holly lied, and Richard began writing it down. It is not, Declan burst out. It's next Tuesday, you liar. Shit, cursed Richard, much to everyone's surprise. Has anyone got any tippets? Holly could not stop going to the toilet. She was nervous and had practically no sleep the night before, and she looked how she felt. There were huge bags around her bloodshot eyes, and her lips were bitten. The big day had arrived, her worst nightmare, singing in public. Holly wasn't even the kind of person who sang in the shower for fear of cracking all the mirrors. But man, was she spending time in the toilet today? There was no better laxative than fear, and Holly felt as if she had lost a stone in just one day. Her friends and family had been as supportive as ever, sending her good luck cards. Sharon and John had even sent her a bouquet of flowers, which she placed on the draught-free, heat-vent-free coffee table beside her half-dead orchid. Denise had hilariously sent her a sympathy card, fully dressed in the outfit Jerry had told her to buy last month, and cursed him throughout. There were far more important things to worry about right now than irrelevant little details like how she looked. She left her hair down so it covered her face as much as possible and piled on the waterproof mascara as though it was going to prevent her from crying. She could foresee the night ending in tears. She tended to have psychic powers when it came to facing the shittiest days of her life. John and Sharon collected Holly in a taxi and she refused to talk to them, cursing everyone for forcing her to do this. She felt physically sick and she couldn't sit still. Every time the taxi stopped at a red light, she contemplated jumping out and running for dear life. But by the time she would build up the courage, the lights would go green again. Her hands fidgeted nervously and she kept opening and closing her bag, pretending to Sharon she was searching for something just to keep herself occupied. Relax, Holly, Sharon said soothingly. Everything will be fine. Fuck off, she snapped. They continued on in silence for the rest of the journey. Even the taxi driver didn't speak. After a tense journey, they finally reached Hogan's, and John and Sharon had a hell of a time trying to stop Holly ranting something about prepping, preferring to jump in the liffey and persuading her to go inside. Much to Holly's horror, the club was absolutely jammed, and she had to squeeze by everyone to make her way to her family, who had saved a table right beside the toilet as requested. Richard was sitting awkwardly on a stool, looking out of place in a suit. So tell me about these rules, father. What will Holly have to do? Holly's dad explained the rules of karaoke to Richard, and her nerves began to build even more. Gosh, that's terrific, isn't it? Richard said, staring around the club in awe. Holly didn't think he had ever been in a nightclub before. The sight of the stage terrified Holly. It was much bigger than she had expected, and there was a huge screen on the wall for the crowd to see the words of the songs. Jack was sitting with his arms draped around Abby's shoulders. They both gave her supportive smiles. Holly scowled at them and looked away. Holly, the funniest thing happened earlier on, Jack said, laughing. Remember that guy, Daniel, we met last week? Holly just stared at him, watching his lips moving, but not giving a damn about what he said. Well, me and Abby got here first to keep the table, and we were having a case, and your man came over and whispered in my ear that you were gonna be here tonight. He thought we were going out and that I was doing the dirt. Jack and Abby laughed hysterically. Well, I think that's disgusting, Holly said and turned away. No, Jack tried to explain. He didn't know that we were brother and sister. I had to explain. Jack trailed off as Sharon shot him a warning look and silenced him. Hi, Holly, Daniel said, approaching her with a clipboard in his hand. Okay, here's the order of tonight. First up is a girl called Margaret, then a guy called Keith, and then you are up after him. Is that okay? Some third? Yeah, after. That's all I need to know, Holly snapped rudely. She just wanted to get out of this stupid club and wished that everyone would stop annoying her and leave her alone to wish evil thoughts on them all. She wished the ground would swallow her up, that a natural disaster would occur and everyone would have to evacuate the building. In fact, that was a good idea. She searched around frantically for a button to raise the fire alarm, but Daniel was still talking away to her. Look, Holly, I'm really sorry to disturb you again, but could you tell me which of your friends is Sharon? He looked as if he was afraid she was going to bite his head off. So he should be, she thought, narrowing her eyes. Her over there, Holly pointed to Sharon. Hold on, why? Oh, I just wanted to apologize for the last time we spoke. He started to walk towards Sharon. Why? Holly said in panic, the panic in her voice making him turn around again. We just had a minor disagreement on the phone last week. He looked at her confused. You know, you really don't need to do that. She's probably forgotten about it completely by now. She stammered. This was the last thing she needed. Yeah, but I would still like to apologize. And he headed over to Sharon. Holly leaped from her stool. Sharon, hi, I'm Daniel. I just wanted to apologize about the confusion on phone last week. Sharon looked at him as though he had 10 heads. Confusion? You know, on the phone. John placed an arm protectively around Sharon's waist. On the phone. Hey, yes, on the phone, he nodded. What's your name again? It's Danielle. And we spoke on the phone? Sharon said with a smile appearing on her face. Holly gestured wildly to her behind Daniel's back. Daniel cleared his throat nervously. Yes, you called the club last week. I answered. Does that ring a bell? No, sweetie, you've got the wrong girl, Sharon said politely. Sean threw Sharon a dirty look for calling him sweetie. If it was up to him, he would have told him where to go. Cool. Daniel brushed his hand through his hair and appeared to be more confused than everyone else. He began to turn round to face Holly. Holly nodded her head frantically to Sharon. Oh, Sharon said, looking as though she finally remembered. Oh, Daniela, she yelled a bit over enthusiastically. God, I'm so sorry. My brain cells seem to be going a bit dead. She laughed like a mad woman. Must be too much of this, she chortled, picking up her drink. Relief washed over Daniel's face. Good. I thought it was me going mad there for a minute. Okay, so you remember us having that conversation on the phone. What was that conversation we had on the phone? Listen, don't worry about it, she said, waving her hand dismissively. It's just I only took over the place a few weeks ago and I wasn't too sure of the exact arrangements for tonight. Don't worry, we all need our time to adjust to things, you know. Sharon looked at Holly to see if she had said the right thing or not. Okay then. Well, it's nice to finally meet you in person, Daniel laughed. Can I get you a stool or something? He joked. Sharon and John sat on their stools and stared back at him in silence, not knowing what to say to the strange man. Oh dear, Holly, you did it again. Okay. John watched with suspicion as Daniel walked away. What was all that about? Sharon screamed at Holly as soon as he was out of earshot. Oh, I'll explain to you later, said Holly. She turned to face the stage as their karaoke host stepped on stage. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, he announced. Good evening, shouted Richard, looking excited. Holly rolled her eyes to heaven. We have an exciting night ahead of us, he went on and on and on in his DJ voice, while Holly danced nervously from foot to foot. She desperately needed the toilet again. So first up tonight we have Margaret from Talat, who is going to sing the theme to Titanic. My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. Please put your hands together for the wonderful Margaret. The crowd went wild. Holly's heart raced. The hardest song in the world to sing. Typical. When Margaret started to sing, the room became so quiet that you could almost hear a pin drop. Holly watched everyone's faces. They were all staring at Margaret in amazement, including Holly's family, the traitors. Margaret's eyes were closed as she sang with such passion as though she had lived every line of the song. Holly hated her and contemplated tripping her up on her way back to her seat. Wasn't that incredible? The DJ announced. The crowd cheered again. Holly prepared herself not to hear that sound after she sang. Next up we have Keith. You may remember him as last year's winner, and he's singing America by Neil Diamond. Give it up for Keith. Holly didn't need to hear any more, and she rushed to the toilet. She paced up and down and tried to calm herself, but her knees were knocking. Her stomach was twisted in knots, and she felt the beginnings of vomit rising to her mouth. She looked at herself in the mirror and tried to take a big deep breath. It didn't work, as it only made her feel dizzy. The crowd applauded outside and Holly froze. She was next. Wasn't Keith terrific, ladies and gentlemen? Lots of cheers again. Perhaps Keith is going for the record winning 2 years in a row. For the record of winning 2 years in a row. Well, it didn't get any better than that. Well, it doesn't get any better than that. It was allowed to get a lot worse. Next, we have a newcomer to the competition. and her name is Holy, and she's singing. Holy ran to the toilet and locked herself in. There was nowhere in this world they were getting her out of there. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Holy. There was a huge applause. Okay, we're at the end of page 115, and at the end of chapter 13. We will be right back with chapter 14 as soon as possible. Thank you for listening, guys. Bye bye.